The brother of the late Virginia Giuffre is calling for an investigation into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who was stripped of his royal titles by his brother, King Charles. Virginia Giuffre took her life earlier this year. In her memoirs, she gave more details about the allegations that she was abducted and slept with Andrew when she was 17. Andrew has denied the allegations. Sky News spoke with her brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, who have welcomed the royal family's decision and are asking the King to pressure the United States President, Donald Trump, into releasing the Epstein files.
We've had kind of mixed emotions. I think a lot of celebratory moments, but also really sad moments because she's not here with us. She should be sitting on this camera with you right now, celebrating this, but also demanding more justice, right? So I think it's a mixed bag of emotions over the last 24 hours, but we are just hell-bent to not let her voice die.
We had been reaching a moment where we had felt like we were pushing so hard, and especially in our country, we've just been gaslit and slapped in the face over and over again, and I was just like, man, Virginia, you know, something's got to give, and I can imagine that she's felt that so many times throughout her process and her fight for justice, and so I feel that, yes, this was a win, and you get so little in these circumstances, so we celebrate every single win.
When you say gaslit and slapped in the face, what do you mean by those comments?
Our country, our government, our president, our Department of Justice, our Speaker of the House has consistently gaslit survivors, called it a hoax. Mike Johnson said, oh, well, only 20 survivors showed up on the steps of Washington, D.C. to make sure that their voices were heard. Only 20? One is one too many.
The King is setting a roadmap. He's setting a precedent to the rest of the world to say, I do stand with survivors. I am going to hold even my brother to account. But it's still not enough in the sense that he's still walking around a free man. I mean, let's not be naive that he's not going to be living on the side of the road here. He's still in a very, let's say, cush spot where he should be investigated. Let's put it that way. And I think that our government, to Amanda's point, is safeguarding these documents. They have it locked away in this little Pandora's box of people that are implicated, and we need to fully investigate them because Prince Andrew is just one of many that need to be investigated thoroughly. And so I think the King should put pressure on our government. He should put pressure on President Trump. He should tell President Trump verbatim, President Trump, put your big boy pants on and let's get these Epstein files released.
The King's decision has made headlines in the US. James Matthews has the details from Washington, D.C.
Right. Before we unpack what might be the most audacious challenge to royal power in modern history, smash that subscribe button and hit the notifications bell because UK Informate is bringing you the story that asks whether King Charles will use his influence for genuine justice or just manage scandal from behind palace walls. And you absolutely need to hear what comes next. So King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of his titles, released statements expressing sympathy for abuse survivors, and effectively banished Andrew from the monarchy. That is more action than most people ever expected from an institution famous for protecting its own. But Amanda Roberts, sister-in-law of the late Virginia Giuffre who accused Andrew of sexual assault, is saying, "Brilliant, you have dealt with your brother. Now let us talk about everyone else." In an interview with CNN, she urged King Charles to use his considerable global influence to push world leaders, including the United States President, to stand with Epstein survivors and pursue accountability for everyone connected to that horrific network of abuse. And honestly, that is not just a request. That is a challenge to prove whether Charles's sympathy for survivors extends beyond his own family crisis into genuine international advocacy for justice. Let us talk about what Amanda Roberts is actually asking here, because the scale of this request is genuinely staggering. She is not asking Charles to make another statement or host a symbolic meeting. She is asking him to leverage his position as monarch of the United Kingdom and head of the Commonwealth to pressure global leaders into action on the Epstein scandal. That means using diplomatic channels, royal influence, and international relationships to make Jeffrey Epstein's network of abuse a priority for governments that have apparently been content to let it fade from public attention. That is asking Charles to transform from a monarch dealing with a family scandal into an international advocate for survivor justice. It is a complete reimagining of what royal power could be used for. Amanda Roberts told CNN that King Charles has a big opportunity to show leadership. That phrasing is crucial because it reframes this moment not as a crisis managed, but as an opportunity seized. Charles could easily view stripping Andrew's titles as the end of his involvement. Problem solved, scandal contained, time to move on. But Roberts is positioning this as the beginning of something far more significant. She is saying Charles has demonstrated willingness to act decisively against a royal family member, which is historically unprecedented. Now he should channel that same courage and decisiveness into pressuring other world leaders to investigate and prosecute everyone connected to Epstein's crimes, regardless of how powerful or protected they are. The specific mention of the United States president is particularly interesting. Jeffrey Epstein operated primarily in America. His network included American politicians, business people, and celebrities. Many of his alleged crimes occurred on American soil. Yet American authorities have been criticized for incomplete investigations and failure to aggressively pursue everyone connected to Epstein beyond Ghislaine Maxwell's prosecution. Roberts is essentially asking King Charles to use diplomatic pressure to make the Epstein case a priority for American law enforcement and political leadership. That is asking a British monarch to influence American domestic policy on criminal justice, which is genuinely extraordinary and demonstrates just how frustrated survivors and their families are with the pace and scope of accountability. Think about what this would actually look like practically. Charles meeting with world leaders and raising the Epstein scandal as a priority issue. Using state visits and diplomatic conversations to push for fuller investigations and prosecutions. Leveraging the soft power of the British monarchy to make survivor justice a global imperative rather than a scandal individual countries would prefer to forget. That would transform Charles from a ceremonial figurehead into an active advocate for justice in ways no modern British monarch has attempted. It would be genuinely revolutionary use of royal influence, and it would require Charles to risk diplomatic relationships and political complications to stand with survivors publicly and consistently. But here is the uncomfortable question lurking beneath Roberts's request. Does King Charles actually have the influence she is asking him to wield? British monarchs have soft power, prestige, symbolism, the weight of history and tradition. But they have limited hard power to compel action from other governments. Charles cannot order the American president to prioritize Epstein investigations. He cannot force other nations to pursue prosecutions. What he can do is make survivor justice a visible priority through his platform, use diplomatic channels to raise the issue persistently, and signal very publicly that the British monarchy stands with survivors and expects other governments to do the same. That kind of sustained public advocacy can create political pressure even without formal authority. The timing of Roberts's request is strategically brilliant. Charles has just demonstrated unprecedented willingness to act against his own brother, which gives him credibility on this issue that he previously lacked. For years, the palace protected Andrew, minimized allegations, and hoped the scandal would disappear. Now Charles has reversed course completely, stripping titles and evicting Andrew from royal property. That action proves Charles is willing to prioritize accountability over family loyalty when forced to choose. Roberts is capitalizing on that moment to push Charles further, arguing that if he was willing to act decisively against Andrew, he should be equally willing to pressure other powerful people and institutions to face consequences for connections to Epstein. What makes this request so powerful is that it refuses to let the Andrew situation be compartmentalized as a discrete family crisis resolved through titles being stripped. Roberts is forcing everyone to acknowledge that Andrew was not the only powerful person connected to Epstein. There are others, politicians, business people, socialites, celebrities, who maintained relationships with Epstein despite knowing or suspecting what he was. Some of them are American, some are British, some are from other countries. All of them have largely escaped the kind of public accountability Andrew is now facing, and Roberts is asking Charles to use his influence to change that. The phrase "stand with survivors" is crucial here because it defines what Roberts is asking for in moral rather than just legal terms. Standing with survivors means more than expressing sympathy. It means actively working to ensure they get justice, that their abuses face consequences, and that systems that protected those abuses are dismantled. It means using whatever power and influence you have to make survivor justice a priority rather than an inconvenience. Roberts is asking Charles whether his expressions of sympathy will translate into sustained advocacy or whether they were just damage control statements designed to manage a scandal involving his brother. Thanks ever so much for watching, everyone. We will catch you in the next one.